work for Chester County Parks, and just going to give a presentation tonight, kind of a Chester County Park overview. Now, in particular, I deal with Chester County Parks, but that doesn't mean absolutely every park in Chester County. We have some state parks here, like Marsh Creek. We have some federal parks, like Valley Forge. We don't deal with those. We deal with parks that are under the Chester County government, like Warwick County Park, Black Rock Sanctuary, a section of the Schuylkill River Trail. So I'm going to go over those 6 parks that we have and those 3 regional rail trails that we oversee in the county and give you a little more information about it. And then if any of these places really pique your interest, I put some literature there in the back. It's going to be maps for those parks, more information, and also some programming and event schedules we have coming up. So you can kind of dive in a little deeper after the presentation if you'd like. But what isn't in this is essentially what park rangers do here in the Chester County Park System. We're primarily out there as the eyes and the ears for the department. We work as safety out there to make sure all the conditions on the trails are safe for the public. We work educationally to go out and educate people about kind of our rules and regulations and really just our code of ethics out there to keep everybody safe and everything functioning well. And we also do a lot of programming, go around the libraries and other organizations and educate them about our parks, try to encourage people, especially in Chester County, to come out and use these great resources. I'm not from around here, I'm from Lycoming County originally, and up there we're flooded with state land, but we don't even have a county park system. So I was pretty impressed when I came down to Chester County about 5 years ago and first took a hike in Hibernia Park outside of Coatesville about how nice the county park system is down here. It really is. It's on a level with the state park system, or even better in some cases, I'd say. So if you're not familiar with it, outside my presentation, you really have to go out and check it out. It's a great resource here in Chester County. So the park system here in Chester County was established in 1958 by the commissioners to primarily preserve natural, cultural, and historic resources in the county. Currently, we have over 5,000 acres of property that we maintain and 22 miles of regional trails, and that's between 3 trails, Schuylkill River Trail, Chester Valley Trail, and Struble Trail. Employ about 80 park staff in the Facilities and Parks Department. And I guess the biggest to-do was in 2012 we merged the facilities. Before then we were just the Parks Department, now we're Facilities and Parks. So here's a map of Chester County, and listed on there are the 6 parks that we oversee. Hibernia County Park, Nottingham, Warwick, Wolf's Hollow, Springton Manor, Black Rock Sanctuary, and Exton Park Site. Spread out all over the county. Closest to us here in Phoenixville is Black Rock Sanctuary. The 3 regional trails that we oversee, closest to us here, Schuylkill River Trail, Chester Valley Trail, down closer between Exton and King of Prussia, and then the Struble Trail just north of Downingtown, connects Downingtown and Marsh Creek State Park. We also manage a few other additional open spaces that really we don't consider park sites. Sanatoga and Linfield, they're a little closer to the Parker Ford area. They are basins similar to what Black Rock Sanctuary was, and we really manage them as deer management units and lease them out to farmers also to use. Hatfield and McGrail property, they're close to the Hibernia Park area, and they're managed similarly to the basins. So Facilities and Parks in Chester County offers a lot of events and programs. Granted, this is an event schedule from 2013. I have a newer one back there. A lot of the events are the same. One of our biggest one is coming up in Nottingham County Park, and that's Freedom Fest, probably the biggest one County Parks does every year, and that's coming up on June 29th. But another long-running one and big one in Hibernia County Park is Fiddler's Picnic. And I think this year is going to be the 91st annual Fiddler's Picnic down there. And that's just a bunch of musicians getting together, acoustical music, and playing there at the park for the day. So a list of all those events will be back there on the website, but it's pretty extensive every year. In addition to that, we also do a lot of educational programs inside the parks and also go outside the parks to do that. Mark's been very gracious to us here. We've come to the Phoenixville Library a few times, done some backpacking programs, and then from here, take it to the park where we actually go on a hike through the park and do some survival and wilderness situations out there. So how the county park system is divided right now is into 3 different regions, a north, central, and a south. And in the northern region, which is the region I work in currently, we really have our hands full. In addition to Warwick County Park and Black Rock Sanctuary, we also oversee 2 of the regional rail trails, the bigger ones, Chester Valley Trail and Schuylkill River Trail, and also the Basins and Exton Park site, which is kind of an extension of Chester Valley Trail down in the Exton area. So Warwick County Park, if you're not familiar, it's in that Pottstown area. And French Creek runs right through it, kind of in the area of St. Peter's Village there. It's primarily dominated by hardwood forest, meadows, wetlands, and French Creek, which is rated an exceptional value waterway by DCNR. So roughly about 500 acres, hiking, biking, horseback riding, bird watching, self-guided educational trails like the Charcoal Trail, and a total of about 8 miles of trails. This is a pretty classic shot of what you're going to see once you get into the hardwood forest there. Also running through there is the Horseshoe Trail, which is about a 140-mile trail that runs from the Appalachian Trail to Valley Forge National Park. We have about 3 miles of that trail in our park. So what a lot of these trails were, including the Horseshoe Trail, were old cart paths that used to run through these hardwood forests. And these hardwood forests were used for the timber to make charcoal to run the furnaces and the forges in the area, like Hopewell Furnace, Coventry Forge, those areas. So that was kind of, when we first settled in the area, that's what we were primarily using these forests for. And a lot of these trails that still run through the park are those trails that were used to move this charcoal between hardwood forest and furnaces. In addition to that, there's some other unique features there. The Fink Truss Bridge, which has a little bit of its roots here in Phoenixville Ironworks. It's the last remaining Fink Truss in the county, but we actually put it there in the park and built an observation deck off of the actual truss itself. So we're about 4 miles west of 100. In addition to that, there's also some pavilions for rent, which is pretty common in a lot of our parks. Hibernia and Nottingham are the other 2 that have that. Playgrounds, parking, and ADA accessible fishing area for French Creek. So there's a pretty common pavilion in the county park system. And for county residents, it's a pretty good deal on the pricing for them. We get a lot of people there celebrating birthdays, graduations, so they get utilized well, especially on the weekends by county residents. People outside the county, they can also use them. They pay a little bit of an extra fee. Playgrounds, a lot of our park systems also have playgrounds. This one in particular is nice because it has rubber instead of mulch for the grounding, so that way we can keep it open longer throughout the year. Mulch freezes up in the winter, becomes too hard, so we have to close them down. It becomes a safety issue. With the rubber mulch, we don't have that same issue. So unless it's just inundated with snow, we don't have to shut it down because the surface won't freeze. The fishing deck, ADA accessible fishing deck. In particular, this is a big event that we do every May, fishing rodeo there at the park for kids aged 3 to 15. And it draws quite a crowd, and it's free for the kids. So a lot of those type of events going on in the park. Local trout club comes, stocks French Creek full of trout, some as big as the kids out there fishing, and they get to reel them in and have fun. So moving on from Warwick, we have Black Rock Sanctuary, just right out here on 113 Black Rock Road. Nice little sanctuary, just over 100 acres big, primarily wetlands, woodlands, meadows, and it's right in that Atlantic coastal flyway for migratory birds. So it was primarily envisioned as a sanctuary for these migratory birds, and it was a converted basin. It borders the Schuylkill River, and not a very old park, built up to be that sanctuary. Has about 1 mile just shy of an interpretive trail that has these different stations. It's going to educate people on that trail that are interested about these different habitats that they're going to come across there. 6 different stations. This is the amphibian station here, and all this is going to be around certain things that are going on in the park to try to give people an educational experience about why the park is there, what we're trying to achieve with it. There is a pond in the middle, Black Rock Pond, for bass fishing, catch and release only, and it's a great area for birding because it's along this flyway. So we do have mounted binoculars out there that people can utilize. And like I said, right out on Black Rock Road. Down here, another station along that pond. You can kind of see Black Rock Pond there in the background. So this is a converted silt basin. Like I said, we have 2 other silt basins, Sanatoga and Linfield. And these silt basins back in the day were used when they dredged the Schuylkill River. The Schuylkill River, after all the mining upriver and all the transportation on the river, came inundated with coal silt. So back in about mid-20th century, they set up to dredge a lot of that and get that coal silt out. And what they did is in a lot of peninsulas along the river, they set up these basins with big berms, just made like big buckets out of these basins, and pumped all this water, sludge, silt into there and let it drain back into the river. So all these basins basically became deposits for all this cool silt. So after that project, eventually Bureau of Mines sold it to the county. 1990, park was built and completed by 2002. So in the process, created 46 acres of wetland and the interpretive trail. And this is kind of a picture from the construction process of that. At the time, still filled with a lot of this silt. And kind of an interesting little fact is a lot of charcoal companies came in, and that silt that was deposited into the basin, they would use that to make charcoal briquettes, mine it up, and utilize it that way. All right, so moving on from Black Rock Sanctuary, we have Chester Valley Trail, which is probably our busiest park in the county park system. Trail that runs from Exton all the way down to King of Prussia. Currently in Chester County, it's about 13.5 miles long. The bigger picture for the Chester Valley Trail is to extend it all the way west over to Lancaster County to meet up with another rail trail over there called the Enola Low-Grade Trail. That's a big project. That's like the big picture 25 years down the road. Right now, the immediate picture is trying to extend it another mile west towards Downingtown into the Oaks Corporate Center over there. So 13.5 miles. It's a commuter path, so it's paved during winter storms. A lot of times it'll be not paved but plowed. It'll be plowed before some of the other major roadways. Open 365 days a year, 8 a.m. to sunset. And runs all the way to Montgomery County line. Now once it hits Montgomery County line, it extends about another 1.5 miles. The plan on their end is to extend it further east up to the Schuylkill River Trail in Morristown and connect it there. Kind of the bigger picture with a lot of these regional trails is to make circuit trails out of them so people can ride between trails. So as we're working diligently in Chester County to extend it west to Lancaster County, in Montgomery County they're looking to extend it east over to the SRT to make some larger circuits from Philadelphia all the way up eventually to Harrisburg. So pedestrians and bicyclists only on the Chester Valley Trail. It's a little different. We have some horse traffic on the Schuylkill River Trail. But there's a shot of it. It's a pretty heavily wooded trail, different from the Schuylkill River Trail for anyone that's been out there. It is paved currently, and parallels 202/30 bypass, but still heavily wooded. Lots of parking options, trailheads along there currently in Chester County. Probably the best one is the Exton Park that was developed by the county when they built the trail. Has restroom facilities, water facilities, volleyball court, playground facilities, so it's actually like a park. A lot of these other trailheads, it's going to be at township buildings and primarily just strictly parking. Another shot of the Chester Valley Trail. So that project was begun in about the mid-90s, and to have 13.5 miles of paved trail through a heavily, suburban, urban area is pretty impressive. These things take time, but when they finally get completed, the payoff's pretty big to the residents. So it follows the path of the Chester Valley Railroad. Expansion continuing. Yeah, about 500,000 users annually. It's our busiest. It's one of our busiest parks, if not the busiest park. So there's kind of an old snapshot for anybody that's familiar with the Exton area down around Church Farm School. That is Exton Park, and there in the upper left-hand corner, an old snapshot when the rail line was still running, and then now, same area where the Chester Valley Trail sits. There's going over Lincoln Highway, Route 30. There's what it currently looks like. Same building, different building in the back on the other side. So Exton Park Site is almost a 500-acre park site down by the Chester Valley Trail. It sits on the opposite side. It's kind of one of these park sites that's waiting to be developed. Right now, it's just a nice kind of open area, a combination of forested side hill and fields. This is a shot that one of our previous rangers caught of an owl in there. I think the ranger got a little too close because that's what an angry owl looks like. All right, so our other popular regional rail trail is the Schuylkill River Trail, or SRT. And here you can see it in some of these phases. So what we have right now in Chester County, beyond this Phoenixville section, is this section that runs from Crombie Trailhead on Township Line Road all the way over to Parker Ford to Linfield Road, about 5 miles over there. Now that's phase 1. Phase 2, which is going to extend that trail from Parker Ford all the way up to the 422 bridge, crossing over into Montgomery County, is coming up. It's actually in the bidding process right now to get people to construct that. So that's going to add about another 4.5 miles to the trail and give us about 10 miles total, which is nice, something to look forward to. And when they construct that next section, that 4-mile section, in addition to constructing that and extending the trail, they're also going to pave the entire length of the trail then, from the Crombie Trailhead up to the 422 bridge. So that's going to change the dynamics of the Schuylkill River Trail here a little bit from how it is now. If anybody's familiar with it, it's crushed stone right now, which is still pretty easy to ride on. But in really bad weather, lots of rain, it makes that stone soft, and it can be hard if you're on a bike. So currently a little over 5 miles of that crushed stone. And besides the Crombie Trailhead and the parking up at Linfield, you don't have a great deal there. You do in Spring City, right there by Bridge Street. There's kind of a little business complex where they let you park there, but some of the other trailheads are a little hard to find. In Spring City, they just developed another trailhead right off Gay Street, paved it, so another nice trailhead. They're getting ready for this extension, assuming there's going to be greater use there. There's a sign at the Crombie Trailhead, plenty of parking there currently. I've never seen it fill up. There's probably about 50 spots there currently. So this is part of a bigger trail that runs from Philadelphia all the way up to Pottsville, and even extends a little bit up into Frackville. So still really piecing this together in parts, but once this part is complete, The trail will be primarily complete from then Philadelphia all the way up to the Pottstown area. I think there's still some holes there between Pottstown and Reading. But as far as Chester County is concerned, we've completed our section. So this trail, because it is stone right now, does not get plowed. That'll likely change when it does get paved, but that does open it up to some horseback riding and also cross-country skiing when we get enough snow. Another shot of the trail, a lot different than our other two regional rail trails. The Schuylkill River Trail primarily runs under a power line, so not as heavily shaded, so it's a hotter trail for sure. All right, so jumping down to the central region, 3 parks there: Hibernia County Park, Springton Manor Farm, and Struble Trail. Kind of a classic shot of the Hibernia Park mansion. So this is located right outside of Coatesville, and this is the first county park that I became familiar with. And it's kind of the quintessential park in the county park system. It has a lake, has the west branch of the Brandywine that goes through for trout fishing. It actually has a campground. It's our only county park to have a campground there. So it kind of has all those amenities that a lot of people that are familiar with the state park system in Pennsylvania, similar amenities to what they have. About 6 miles of trail, more picnic pavilions, and the 2 camping areas. Nice shot of the West Brandywine running through there. It's a cool enough creek where it can keep trout year-round, plus also stock, has a local trout club that stocks it with the help of Fish and Boat Commission. 80-acre Chambers Lake, it's a water reservoir for the Coatesville area. So in addition to that trout fishing in the Brandywine, you also have largemouth and other panfish fishing in Chambers Lake. Here's a nice shot of that. No gas-powered motors on there, electric motors only, so it's a nice quiet lake. No fast gas motors out there to really disrupt it. Hibernia Mansion, open for public tours on Sundays still. Friends of the park do a great job of leading those. And just kind of another classic park in the county that gives a good feel for the iron industry here and the furnaces and the forges in the area. Really traces the history of that. Springton Manor Farm is a working farm park in Chester County. That's the park I'm currently stationed at right now. And it's about 300 acres. And it's in the Glenmore area, which is north of Downingtown. And it's a working farm. In fact, the Chester County Food Bank also has food plots set out there. And they use it as an educational facility as well, to bring in volunteers and also people from the public to educate them about what the Chester County Food Bank is doing in the area. So historic landscape, fence fields, stone walls, old tenant farm. It's just a really beautiful place. And farm animals on there that are there 24/7, horses, cows, sheep, goats. And they do a great event there every April called Sheep and Wool Day. If you've never been there, it's worth checking out. It'll kind of give you a better feel for the history and what's going on a daily basis there in the park. Some very old oaks there called Penn Oaks, back to the founding of Pennsylvania. They do farm tours. We get a lot of school groups out there for the farm tours, and still lots of trails to get out there and walk on. Some of the sheep during the tour. Now in that same area, we have another regional trail, and this one's shorter. It's only about 2.5 miles long, but it's a very nice scenic trail called the Struble Trail. It is heavily forested, runs right next to the east branch of the Brandywine, which keeps it nice and cool between the shade trees and the Brandywine Creek there. Paved trail, a little more narrow than the Struble Trail, only about 8 feet wide as opposed to 10, but it doesn't get nearly the bike traffic that the Chester Valley Trail gets. It's a lot more walkers are out there utilizing walkers, runners. So currently, it runs from Cardona Park in Downingtown north, just to Marsh Creek State Park. What's happening next with that trail is they're going to put in a crosswalk there at Dorwin Mill and extend it actually into Marsh Creek Park. So you could take it safely from Downingtown all the way up to Marsh Creek. Right now, where the Struble Trail ends at Dorwin Mill, it's a tricky little road crossing there, and road walk to get up safely to Marsh Creek. They want to extend it into Marsh Creek via trail so people can easily access that. So along the east branch of the Brandywine, some good fly fishing. There's about a 1.5 mile stretch in there that's delayed harvest. So it's stocked year-round. It can be fished year-round, artificial lures only. So that gets utilized a lot by local fishermen. There's some things I already said. So there's another shot of it. You can see how scenic it is from a picture like that. Plenty green, lush, especially with all this road green. Also a previous railroad that used to run through the area. Along the trail you also see stabilized ruins of Dallin Forge, old forge. There's a picture of that right before you cross over Dallin Forge Road. And from there we jump down to the southern region, where we have Nottingham County Park and Wolf's Hollow. So Nottingham, way down south in the county, around Oxford, is our oldest county park. Established shortly after Parks was established in '58. I think this was declared a park in '62. So first county park. Currently over 700 acres in size and very unique for the county. Outcropping of serpentine stone, serpentine barrens down there. It's a completely different landscape than what you're used to seeing in Chester County. It's a barren. It was primarily forested with pitch pines. It's one of the largest serpentine barrens on the entire East Coast. It's of such significance it was actually named a National Natural Landmark in 2008. And similar to a lot of our other parks, has about between 6 and 8 miles of trails down there. So this is a good picture of kind of what you see down there in the landscape. You have these barrens, looks more like true prairie, savannas down there with a lot of these pitch pines. So it looks like something you'd almost see more down south. So these serpentines, you see it in some of the architecture around here, this green stone that they use in buildings down on UPenn campus. A lot of the buildings down there are constructed from this serpentine stone, and it has a really unique green shade to it. I should put a picture in here. I need to do that. But because of these stones, the soil, it just doesn't support a lot of the other vegetation you see in a lot of our other parks. So it has more of this barren landscape. Now a more recent development down there is because of all these pitch pine, we had an outbreak of southern pine beetle down there, which was totally unexpected because the extent of the southern pine beetle was never really felt in a forest in Pennsylvania. They typically are found more south. But with some warmer winters and less of a die-off or a kill-off in those winters, they were able to extend up into Nottingham County Park and do some pretty extensive damage. Lost the majority, 2/3 at least, of the pitch pines in the park. So it looks really devastated, even more barren than it was previously. So that gives you a good feel of kind of what the barren looks like through there. Just real lacking in vegetation. But the park is still open in its entirety. A lot of the pitch pines that were along these trails that have died off have been cut down or fallen down on their own. And they're in the process of kind of revitalizing the park out of that, especially in the front country. So Nottingham's our oldest county park, but our newest county park is Wolf's Hollow. And that's down around the Ackland area, along the Octorara River, Octorara Creek. And old Gagliardi property, purchased from him by the county. Opened in 2010, about 600 acres, about 8 miles of hiking trails. Similar history, some of our other parks have a lot of old charcoal hearths in there where the hardwoods were cut to make charcoal to fire the furnaces. So classic hardwood feel through the forest, lots of trails, marked with blazes. And with that, I've come to the end. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the parks currently in the county park system, whether it's ours or another park. I'll try to answer. Yes? Usually the hope is to begin construction this fall, so a year from then. So hopefully by October, November of next year, that will be completed and paved in its entirety. No, I was only going to say, anybody that's familiar with these regional trails knows not to take these dates as really hard dates. That's the optimistic view. We really hope to be there. The point where it's at now, we should be able to get there, but you know how these projects go, they can always extend. That's all I want to say.
Is the hope to connect data essentially with the river trail that goes through the Schuylkill and the Valley Forge Park?
Yes. Yeah, it'll all be part of that same trail system, hopefully extending 130 miles between Pottsville and Philadelphia. And then also the Chester Valley Trail will tie into it in Norristown. And in addition, that Schuylkill Trail, they're trying to drop it down below downtown and hopefully hook up with the Chester Valley Trail when it extends through downtown on its march next. So we're really trying to tie in all those trails. Yes, sir.
The Philadelphia Trail, where's that headed? How far to Philadelphia?
How far to Philadelphia from where?
The trail, the Phil Trail, the Philadelphia Trail.
The Schuylkill River Trail?
That goes into Philadelphia.
It does. The distance from, I think the question was how far from Chester County, like Phoenixville, down to Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Okay, it's about 30 miles. Yeah.
Where's the drop you off down to Philadelphia? Where down for the special happening up there?
The Art Museum,
Park, okay.
yeah, which I've not been down there personally. Yeah. Yeah, I do need to go. I'm too busy on our section. Yes, sir.
And you said the bridge is going to cross the 422 bridge
Yes.
up in Pottstown.
Yes.
So is that pretty much already set up for the trail, or do they have to build a whole nother part?
Now, when they constructed the bridge there, to my knowledge, they constructed it with the trail in mind to go there. So it's not something that's going to be a big stall point out there. Now it's just a matter of connecting the trail from the bridge to Linfield Road.
And it's from the trail in Phoenixville, it starts at the Montclair Bridge and it goes all the way out to Township Line Road. Is that considered part of the Schuylkill River Trail?
It is. What happens with this is it's kind of divided up between townships, municipalities, and the county. Like the county, we oversee from Township Line Road all the way up to that 422 bridge. Once it crosses Township Line Road into Phoenixville, then the Phoenixville looks after that section of trail. It's currently paved in there. Yes? The Patriots Path is kind of, I'm not as familiar with it. We have a portion of that Patriots Path that runs on the Chester Valley Trail, but it's basically, it's a loop trail that runs through some of the more historic segments of the county. But we don't, unfortunately, we don't deal with it much, and we have some wayfinders along the Chester Valley Trail that speak to that heritage along the trail, but right now, we don't even, I wouldn't say we even advertise out there too much that it's part of that Patriots Path. So I'm learning about it too, as the Patriots Path grows, as the connect road. Yes, sir.
Your one slide mentioned Scientific Farm. I think it was the Springton Manor slide.
Yeah.
Oh, what is that?
I think that was more back in the day before it became county property. It was considered more of a scientific farm. Why exactly, I don't know what kind of science was going on there.
I never saw that before. I got something. Thank you.
It was primarily a tenant farm and kind of a manor estate for most of its life before the county purchased it. Any other questions, guys? Yes, sir.
How much of the trail have you been on your bike?
On which trail?
The Schuylkill River Trail.
I've only been on the section that we oversee in Chester County as a ranger. So what we do is with these trails, we go out and patrol them primarily on bike. We have bike and we'll jump between these trails like the SRT and the CBT. And so we're constantly going back and forth on those trails. Really out there is kind of an educational effort to talk to people and just kind of let them know about the ethics of the trail, make sure everyone plays nice out there. So we spend a lot of time on those sections of the trails constantly. We try to get eyes on every inch of the trail every day.
You ever have to call for backup?
Yeah, occasionally we have things that happen out there, but given the total numbers of people, especially on the Chester Valley Trail that we get, things run really smooth down there considering how many visitors that trail sees. The incidents are mostly injuries along the trail from people falling on bikes, heat-related injuries, things like that. There isn't a lot of foul play out there, considering how many different people are out there at any given time, which makes our job easier. And we can just ride around and smile and give people information. Yes?
So what times are the rangers out?
What's that?
What times and days are the rangers out?
We work 7 days a week, and right now parks are open from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. So we're out there that whole time. On a busy trail like the Chester Valley Trail, we try to at least have one ranger on there between busier times of, say, 10 and 6.
Oh, so 2 a.m.